Hey there, I'm Brandon, and this is the Dirt Church Devotional. Have you ever read the book of Ruth? If you haven't read the book of Ruth, you need to read the book of Ruth. Great book. It's like 4 chapters, take you 20 minutes, 45 if you're really, slow and digging in. Do it. I'm not going to tell you about the whole book. It's great. But what I want to look at is chapter 1, because to me, at least for today, this is the most transformational part. And it's not even about Ruth, it's actually about Naomi, who is Ruth's mother-in-law. In my opinion, they could change the name of the book to Naomi, and it would be super powerful, equally as powerful. Let me give you a little bit of background. Okay, so this happened at the time of the judges, before there was a king in Israel, and Naomi, she's an Israelite woman. Her and her husband, Elimelech, I believe is his name, they had 2 sons, Malian and Kilian. They lived in Bethlehem, and there was a famine in the land. And because there was a famine, obviously no food, they heard that there was food down in Moab. And so they decided to pack up and leave Bethlehem, leave Judah, leave Israel, the promised land, and go to Moab to live for a while, kind of save their skin, whatever, take care of business. They end up being there about 10 years. And in that 10 years, Elimelech, the husband, the father, he dies. And both sons get married, and they marry Moabite women. And then both sons die. And so at about the 10-year mark, this is where we pick up the story, about the 10-year mark, Naomi gets word that God has come to the rescue of his people there in Israel, and that there's now food in Bethlehem. And so she decides she's going to go back to Bethlehem, back to the land of promise, back to the land of her ancestors, and that's where she's going to live. And her daughters-in-law decide to go with her. Well, one of them says, okay, I'll go home. She says, no, don't go with me. I'm too old to have kids, blah, blah, blah. I can't have another son for you. Just go home, go back to your parents. But Ruth says, no, look, I'm going with you. Where you go, I'll go. Where you die, I'll die. Your God will be my God, and your people will be my people. And Naomi's like, okay, I'm not going to fight this. You can go with me. That's cool. So let's fast forward. Now that you've got the background. They get back to Bethlehem, and all the women are stirred up. They're like, oh, wow, we heard Naomi's back. This is great. This is great. This is awesome. And they come, they say, this is like in, I don't know, just chapter 1, about verse 20, 19, 20. And they're saying, wow, can it really be? Is Naomi really back? Oh, this is awesome. This is exciting. And Naomi says this in verses 20 and 21. She says, don't call me Naomi, because Naomi means pleasant, happy, joyful, whatever. She says, call me Mara. Mara means bitter. Get this, verse 21. This is the kicker. She says, I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty. So don't call me happy, call me bitter. Don't call me pleasant or joyful or of resounding good luck or whatever. Call me bitter, call me broken, call me whatever you want, anything but good, because I went away. When I went away, I was full, and now I come back empty. And I want to look at verse 21. Look at what she says. She says, I went away full, but the Lord brought me back empty. Let's look at just at what her words say, and what she probably literally intentionally meant. She went away full. She had a husband. She had 2 sons. Life was good. She was running away from problems, going to a place where she thought she was going to have good stuff. But over the course of 10 years, she lost everything. Husband, sons, hope, joy, peace, blah, blah, blah. And now she's back in Israel where there's actually food. Let's go a little bit deeper. She says, I went away full. Makes me ask the question, what were you full of? Full of yourself? Full of pride? Full of self-sufficiency? Full of great ideas? Full of, hey, I can get it done? Full of, hey, I'm not sticking around here because I can go someplace else? It's interesting, in Proverbs 14:12, it says this, there's a way that seems right to a man, but in the end, it leads to death. So I went away full, What were you full of? And in fact, let me ask you, because some of you, maybe you have gone away. You've walked away from the Lord. You've fell away from faith. Maybe you grew up in church. You grew up in a faith-filled family. But you know what? You got full. Maybe you were full of it, full of what you had heard, full of the stories and whatnot, and you decided to walk away, and you found yourself kind of broken years later. Maybe you went away full of pride and full of self-sufficiency and full of, just what have you. But you've come to a point where you're broken. This is the second step. She says, but the Lord brought me back empty. We got to get to a point of emptiness, really, before there's room for God to fill us again. We got to get to a point of being emptied of ourselves so that there's room for God to move in our lives. All right, now let me go back to that statement and just strip it down, Naomi's statement, and just strip it down a little bit further. I went away. The Lord brought me back. Hear it again. I went away, but the Lord brought me back. You need to know this. If you have walked away, if you have left, if you've decided to depart the promised land of faith and faithfulness, and you found that life on your own outside of faith and faithfulness isn't all that it's cracked up to be, and you're broken and you're hurting, but you still got too much pride to come back and say, help. Listen, the Lord wants to bring you back. You might have gone away contrary to his desire, but he wants to bring you back. Naomi went away full of whatever. God brought her back once she was empty. And then if you fast forward to the rest of the story and you get to chapter 4, you find out that her daughter-in-law, Ruth, whom the story is written about, whose name is on the cover of the book, she meets this guy named Boaz, and he's a kinsman redeemer. You got to look into Israelite tradition. Anyway, they end up getting married and have a son. Now, really, that son is going to be credited to Naomi's son. It's going to really be considered Naomi's grandson. They name him Obed. Obed ends up being the father of Jesse. Jesse, of course, is the father of King David. So once she had emptied herself of herself and allowed God to bring her back, then she was in a perfect place for God to fill her and bless her and transform her life in bigger ways than she ever thought possible. So, once again, if you've gone away, come on back. If you're full, empty yourself. Let God fill you up. He wants to bless you. He wants to use you. He wants to do things in your life beyond your ability to even think or imagine. All right, so hey, look, that's all I got for today. Chew on that. Talk to you next time.